Okay, so welcome everybody. This is the EMIS staff reporting meeting. We're scheduled to go to 11 o'clock, so we'll try and stick with that time frame as best we can. I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'll have Cheryl introduce herself. We're the ones that are going to be presenting this meeting today. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Carol Van Sickle. I'm the Metaphysical Support Specialist, primarily out of the Athens office. I also assist out of Columbus as well. I've been in this position for 23 years now. I started at C of EC, which is now Meta Athens. Then in 2011, I went to MEC, which is now Meta Columbus. And I've kind of shifted back to the Athens office now because somebody retired from there, so I took over their duties, but I still help out at the Columbus office whenever I can. So welcome everybody, and we hope you find this information really helpful for you to help with the staff reporting. Cheryl, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Cheryl Shaw, and I am one of the EMIS specialists with Meta Solutions. I am based in the Columbus office, and at the end of December, I will have been in this position for 8 years. I started at the Delaware Union Educational Service Center, which then merged into Franklin County to become the ESC of Central Ohio. So my background was in preschool, but by doing the EMIS reporting, learned a lot about the staff side of things. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, thanks, Cheryl. Okay, I know I forgot to pull up a couple things, so let me do that real quick while, and then I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen. I meant to pull up our handouts so that they're ready to show here. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. So bear with me as we switch. Let me find the correct screen. Okay, here we go. Let me see if I can move some stuff around as well. I don't know if that's interfering or not. Let me get this off of that screen. Okay, so we sent an email out with 3 documents attached. So these are the documents we sent out, and we will be referencing these documents. I'll make this a little bit bigger here. And let me move this over. There we go. Okay, so one of the documents that we'll be looking at today is the EMIS staff demographic elements document. So this is part of what's reported for staff that comes directly out of the state software USPS system. Okay, and I just want to briefly go over how to read this chart. Okay, so you'll see in the first column, the staff demographic elements are always coded with a CI code. So if you get any errors from the EMIS system and it has a CI code, you know it's a demographic element. And each one of these is assigned a specific record number. So that's what you're seeing in the first column. The next column is the ODE field name. So this is exactly how they refer to it. And then some of these have a definition tied to it. And then the next column, sometimes we will have specific reporting instructions that we put in here just to give you a little more information about those different elements. Then the next 2 columns, these 2, where it says USPS field name, in this case it's DEM, SCN, demographic screen, bio screen. These columns represent where the ODE element is located in the classic USPS state software system. And we'll go over this in more detail in a little while. The last column shows where that element is located in the USPS redesign system. For those of you that might not know, what's referred to as the classic USPS system is the one that we've had for, I believe I've been told it's been almost 40 years or maybe over 40 years now. And we are finally migrating districts to a new system, and that is the redesign system. So just so you understand what those 2 terms mean. Okay, and so along with this demographic element matrix, we also provided you with the employment elements. Those are coded as CK in the EMIS system. So again, same thing here. We have the record field number, the ODE name with any definition we may have included, a little bit of the reporting instruction information, where it's located in the classic USPS system between these two areas, and then where it's located in the redesigned system. So that's how you read these charts. And then we also included the EMIS staff reporting resources document. So this is basically the outline of what Cheryl and I will be covering today. And so we have, so it kind of takes you in order of how we're going to show you everything that hopefully you need to know to help you with staff reporting. Okay, so we'll refer back to these documents as we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the resources. So we want to make sure you know where to locate the different resources that will be helpful for you when you're doing your staff reporting. So I'm going to start by going to the ODE webpage, Ohio Department of Education. So I'm going to go right to education.ohio.gov, and then we have the actual path you take when you're on the webpage to get to these different areas. I do have a direct link for this one, so if you're viewing this document on your screen, it is clickable, so it will take you directly to that link, or you can do a copy and paste to your browser on it. Okay, so I'm going to go to my web browser, and I'm just going to open another tab because I'm going to be coming back later to our Meta Solutions webpage. So I'm going to go to education.ohio.gov. So that'll take you to the ODE main page. And then we're going to navigate to where the EMIS manual is. So that is located under Topics, and then you select Data. And then you'll have to scroll down a little bit, and you'll see an EMIS link here. So that's what you want to click. And then you scroll down a little bit again, and you'll notice there's an EMIS documentation section. So I'm going to click on EMIS manual. And then if you scroll down a little bit again, you will see it has links here for the different sections of the manual. So section 3 is where you're going to find all of the staff record information. So if I just click that, it will then take me down on the page to where that section is located. The main things I wanted to concentrate on today is the staff demographic and staff employment record sections. So again, you can see the record type is listed here. So demographic is CI, employment is CK. I'm going to click the most recent document. So that's this FY21 column here. And I'm going to go to the demographic chapter. Okay, on all of these sections that you go to, when you scroll down, you will see a revision history area. So that'll give you some information on things that have changed in the manual at different times. So you see these different dates and what changed. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see the table of contents. And when you're on here, all of these are clickable. So if you're looking at this table of contents and you decide you want to know more about a specific element, then you can go ahead and click on that specific element and it'll take you right to that section. So for this one, if I want to click on, let's do authorized years of experience. If I click on that, it takes me right into that section where all that detail is located. And this is one I reference a lot for districts because I do get questions frequently about authorized teaching experience. People just want clarification on what that element, is supposed to consist of. What are they counting for those years of experience? So this is the section you'll want to reference because it goes into detail on what should be included in this element. Okay, so that's a good place to look for additional information. Okay, I'm going to close this one, and I'm going to go to the staff employment section next. Okay, same thing here. You have the revision section. And then if you go down a little further, you have your table of contents. Okay, so again, you can just click on any of these elements that you want more information on. Let's see, let's select position FTE element. Again, that's another one that I get quite a few questions on. That can get a little bit confusing. So, it's a good idea to reference the information here because they do provide a lot of detail about each different element. So most of the time, reading through this information does help you to figure out how you need to report it for specific employees. Okay, the next section I wanted to point out at this time is the section 3.2. This is the reporting contracted staff section. And you'll notice there's no record number with this because this is just general information about reporting contracted staff. And I guess I really shouldn't say general, it really has a lot of specific information in it. So let me open that up so you can see that. If you haven't been in this section of the ODE manual, again, it's very helpful if you have questions about how to report contracted staff. And I'm just going to keep scrolling down, so just bear with me as I do that. You're going to see this chart later on. We're going to go over that in a little more detail later. But as you go through this document, you see it has a lot of detailed information. And you'll notice I'm only on page 3 of 20. But as you go through, it talks about the different contract elements. So we'll be talking more about the CJ record later. And then you'll notice that this document breaks the staff reporting down into different categories. So this is some summary information about each of those different categories. And as you keep going through the document, it actually goes into detail on each of those different categories. So again, this is really helpful if you're not sure how to report a contracted staff situation that you have. So you can look through this document and you should be able to find the specific situation that matches yours. And this will really assist you in figuring out exactly how it needs to be reported. Okay, the other thing I wanted to point out in the EMIS manual from the ODE website is under the course record area. This is really for the student information, but I did want to point out the subject code, which is the 4.7 section. This is where you can see all of the different subject codes that have been established by ODE. Okay, and this will come in later, and again, you can see the different areas here, and you can, well, I guess these aren't clickable, don't appear to be. But you can see all the different tables and all of the different subject codes with detailed description on each one. Okay, and this comes into play more for if you have any certification licensure issues with some of your teachers that are being reported. So this is what you can refer to if there's any question about, if the correct subject code was assigned or, if it matches what they're certified or licensed for to teach. Okay, so I think that was it on that particular section of the manual that I was going to show. The next thing we're going to talk about is the EMIS validation report explanations. And since Cheryl is much more familiar with that area than I am, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Cheryl, and she'll walk through that portion of the resources. So Cheryl, if you're ready, I don't know if you can just switch to your screen, or do you have the screen share option?
You need to enable
Stop
me.
mine. Oh, okay. Okay, well, let me stop my sharing first. And then let me find you. Okay, yeah. So let me make you host, and then you can take that over. Okay, you should have it. Okay, and I do see a couple questions. So while you're doing your screen share, okay, so we have one question. Oh, okay, looks like actually Jen answered it. So the question was, do authorized years update automatically when staff data is closed, or do we have to do something to advance a year? Jen did answer there is a process for each system, classic and redesign, to advance the years manually. Okay, yeah, that is correct. So depending on which system you're in, there is a specific process to get those years updated. Thank you for answering that, Jen.
Are we ready?
We are.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to continue where Carol left off. We are still on the EMIS manual page of ODE's website, and where you find the report explanations is under the quick links on the left-hand side of the page. There's a link to go to EMIS validation and report explanations. These are listed in alphabetical order, and you can see the date posted, and this is the date that they were either originally posted, as you'll see by some of the dates, or anytime that they have updated the information in any of these reports. And we're just going to cover a few that are related to staff information. First is the gen issues or general issues. Excuse me. And as Carol, excuse me, as Carol showed you that there's revision history, table of contents, some information about the report itself, the layout. And as we get into the meat of this general issues, when the EMIS coordinators have run a collection and submitted data to ODE, business owners, some of these are under the contact information, they run their own checks. So data doesn't always just land for EMIS, it goes to other areas of ODE, and they run tolerance checks, which are meant to bring attention to your data for verification and accuracy. It's not necessarily an error, it's just a tolerance check for you to verify your data. And the general issues describes the issue, the result code, let's start with that. The result code that an EMIS coordinator could see is IS0 and then 016, and these are in alphanumeric order in this report. So not necessarily by business owner or topic, it's going to be by this number. So you get a description of the check, and then you might get you'll get contact information if you have additional questions. And this could be a business owner at ODE. It could be the ITC where you need to come to us to ask the question, and we should be able to assist you with that. You'll search, the easiest way is to search the issue number. And one of the examples I have related to staff is 128. So the general issues report that would display for the EMIS coordinator in the data collector will have this number. And when you go to the find, it will take you right to that issue. And this is the percent of teachers with a bachelor's degree or higher. And so you really want to see a good number on that one. And if you find some anomalies, then the EMIS coordinator is likely to come to someone in HR or fiscal just to have this information verified. And there are fields for the degrees for your staff. And so it's just a way to verify against this tolerance check from ODE. The next report we want to look at is the staff missing. And this is one of those that fortunately the guidance hasn't changed. So this 1021.13, the information in this report explanation is still valid with one little exception I will show you. This error report to the district shows all staff members who were reported in the previous reporting period without a separation date, and they've not been reported by the district for the current reporting period. So this gives you information on what that file or report looks like, and it talks about staff overrides, which we'll cover later in an example. And the report sample is just a bit out of date. This basic information is the same, but the manifest code, we have not used manifest K for several years. But the idea is the same, and the example we'll show you has the current manifest in it. And then the third report explanation is the teacher licensure course status report. This displays all course master CN records that are reported and whether the staff member assigned is validly credentialed to teach the course. The purpose of this report is to assist EMIS coordinators to review the actual teacher licensure status report. And we actually offer training on troubleshooting that report. It's that in-depth and detailed. And some of the tools that the EMIS coordinators use to verify data come from, I'm going to go back up to EMIS, some of the links to search for licenses and verify between subject codes and certifications. So to find the certification and licensure search, or as we call it, the dictionary, on that EMIS page, under additional resources and information, there's a certification and licensure search. And you would be searching for regular teaching certificates and licenses. And here you can search by subject code, as Carol mentioned, which are very important to associate with your teachers. Or you can search by the teacher's license type and up to 6 teaching fields. And this can be very helpful to know why or whether that teacher is certified. And I'm just going to do an example of this subject code. This gives you the teacher's certification type and then the teaching field and the grade levels appropriate. Conversely, we can take this example and search DS, and these take a while to learn. That little link takes you to these license types, so there are a lot of them, and when you search a teacher's credential, the license type is there and then it matches to the code. Oh, I think I just need to go back. There we go. And then search the subject code of the license code of 050000. And then this gives you the subject codes that teacher can teach. So a couple different ways to cross-reference your licensure. If you don't have the teacher license information, you can actually search for the teacher. And also on ODE's page, under Other Department Offices and Information, here is the Educator Profile Search. If you have the educator state ID, you can enter it here and search. Or you can search by last name, first name, and if you have middle name and birth year, you can search that way. You just want to be careful because if you enter a state ID here, but then also try a name, a lot of times there are mismatches. So I recommend searching by either the state ID or searching by the name. And just as an example, I'm going to look for my brother-in-law. And if I look for Richard Smith and search, you can see that there are 19 pages of Richard Smiths. How do I know how to find him? So I'm going to narrow my search, and I happen to know his middle initial. That narrows it down some more, but there are still several options. Well, I happen to know his birth year is 1953. So it helps if you're going to do these searches for teachers that you have names, full names, and birth year if possible, so that you can narrow your search and find the actual teacher. So here's what would show for any current or expired licenses. So if an EMIS coordinator runs into an issue on the TLCS report or the teacher licensure course status report, they are likely to come to HR or the fiscal area for assistance, or at least to notify that Mr. Smith is not certified to teach English because he has health, phys ed, and driver's education. So it's just a way for them to cross-reference and do the research on that particular report. You can also find those links for the educator search and the certification and licensure dictionary on the EMIS webpage of Meta Solutions. So that could be a quick way to find those as well. So Carol, I think it's back to you. I will stop sharing my screen.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, oops, host disabled. Okay, I think you have to actually enable me as host again or something.
And help me know how to do that.
You find my picture on the screen and then the 3 little dots in the right corner of my screen. I think it's through that you tell it to make me host. Oh, there, I got a message. Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, so, okay, you should be seeing my screen again. Okay, so I'm done in this area. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to the Meta Solutions webpage. Okay, so this is the main page. And so I just want to show you how to navigate. Most of you already probably know how to get to our fiscal services page, and maybe you have that bookmarked already. But if you haven't been there, the easiest way to get to us is from our main page. You'll click on the Member Resources and Services area. And then from there, you'll see the Fiscal Services button here. Okay, and this is our main fiscal services page. And over on the left side, there's several different options. And most of our information is located in the links and documents area. There's a lot of information on this page. And for what I'm going to show you, you want to scroll down all the way to the bottom of this page. So bear with me as I get down to the very bottom here. This is where you'll see our downloads section. So this will take you to additional documentation that we have. And since we're talking about EMIS staff reporting, you'll see there is an EMIS staff reporting link here. So if I click that, that will actually switch me over to Google Drive. And then you will see these documents that are out there currently for EMIS staff reporting. The one I want to show you right now is this FY21 EMIS staff reporting document. This is a document that we've had trainings on before, and we actually have recordings on those trainings. And they haven't changed a great deal since we've done those trainings, so that information is still relevant. You can actually see those recordings, even though they're a little old. There's one actually available right here. This is one of our staff EMIS presentations. And then we also have a YouTube channel, which I'll go ahead and show you that now. I went back to our links and documents page. Let me see if I can find it. I have to scroll back up a bit. Hopefully I don't pass it. Let's see, I don't remember exactly. Here it is. Okay, so kind of in the middle, maybe a little more toward the top, but we have a link here for YouTube Fiscal Services channel. So we have a lot of different recordings out here, and you can see the list of them here, and you will find a few recordings for EMIS staff out here as well. So you can review those if you want more information about what is in this document that I'm showing you now. So I'm going to close that and come back here. And what we recommend you do on this page is if you want to review a document, you can just click on it to kind of see what's in it. But if you think it's something you want to download and reference more easily, as I hover over this document, you can see this arrow symbol. If I click on that, it will actually download the document to my PC. So then I can just open it whenever I want to easily, find information. But for now, I'm just going to click right on it, and that'll open right on my screen. And you can see that we have the processing schedule information on here. When we notice that any of the dates change, we do try and get that updated as soon as we realize that's happened. Okay. And let me see, make sure I don't lose my place and forget anything here. Okay, yeah, bear with me just a minute. Okay, yeah. All right, so there's a lot of information in here, and as I go through here, there is a table of contents. So again, all of these different chapters are clickable. So if you have this up on your screen or up in a PDF reader, you should be able to click on anything in the table of contents and it'll automatically take you to that page where the detailed information is located. So just at a glance, as you're reading through table of contents, if you see something that you're like, oh, I want to know more about that, you can click on that. The one that I'm going to click on right now is, I have to go down a little bit more. We do have the EMIS staff reporting checklist on here. Okay, we have it within this document. So that is something you definitely want to take a look at because this helps guide you through the steps you need to take to help you report your EMIS staff more accurately. So if nothing else, you may want to print the EMIS staff reporting checklist so that you can actually mark off as you go through each of the steps. And this one is specifically for the classic system, but you can see at the top, we do have a link for the redesigned districts. Now, I do want to let you know, I actually need to update this link because this is actually an old link. So we actually give you the new link on that resources document, and I will navigate to that here in a little bit. So keep in mind, this link does need to be updated for the redesign checklist. But for the classic checklist, so for districts that are on the classic state software system for fiscal, this is what you'll want to use to go through. And it's actually one checklist for both collection periods, the first and final collection for L. And anytime there's anything specific to one collection, we have that highlighted. So you can see on item 1 here, this particular step is for first collection only. So when you get to the final collection of the year, you can skip that step. But a lot of the steps are the same for both collections, so that's why we just combined it together, and then we just pointed out if anything is specific to first or final collection. Okay, and this is several pages long, so you can see that this is the first page. I'm going to the second page now. We do have screenshots of specific things to help you navigate those different programs that are available to help you. We talk about running the per debt program, which I'll show you that option a little bit later. We even have a chart for EMIS attendance rules. This has to do with final reporting. And let's see, I'm just trying to find the end of our checklist. You can see it's several pages. So this is the last page here. So when you're actually getting the data submitted to ODE, okay? So I just want to make sure you know where that checklist is. So that's where you'll retrieve that from. So like I said, at a minimum, you'll want to print those pages if you want to physically have something to mark on as you're going through the steps. I don't recommend printing the entire document because this is 78 pages long. So it's a really large document. So I would just download it instead to your PC so you can more easily access it when needed. Okay. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do was let's go ahead and look at on our resources page. The next thing at the bottom of page 1 is the State Software Development Team wiki page. So that's where I'm going to go to next. I have a bookmark for it, so I'm just going to use that to get right to it. So this is what the SSDT wiki page looks like. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit to this redesign documentation section. And then I'm going to click on the USPSR documentation. And from there, I'm going to click on the USPSR user manual. You can either click it on the left here, or it is in the center here. So either one. And when you click it, it shows you basically what's considered the menu system in USPSR. And right now, I just want to take you to the USPS and EMIS connection link that's over here on the left. Okay, once you click that, this is where you will see the EMIS checklists for the USPS redesign system. So they have it broken down into two different checklists. So they have one for the initial reporting, and then they have another checklist for the final reporting. So of course, right now we're in initial reporting, so you'll want to use this first link. If I click on that, you will see that it gives step-by-step, again, to help assist you in getting your EMIS staff reporting ready to send to ODE. Okay, I'm going to go back. The other thing they have on this page is they do have a link to a PowerPoint presentation. So this helps to, hopefully, helps you to understand the link between the USPS system and EMIS. But again, this is specifically for the redesigned system. So this is a PowerPoint presentation that we've gone through before. Somebody on our team has presented this before, but it goes through all of the data elements. It does show where they're located on the different screens, which I'm going to go through that with you today as well, and a lot of other information. So this is something good to reference as well if you have any questions about staff reporting on the redesigned system. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure you're aware that those are located there. Okay, so now we're ready to move on. I just flipped over to page 2 of our EMIS staff reporting resources document. So this is where we're going to start looking at where the data actually comes from for staff reporting. Okay, and we're going to talk about both systems, the classic state software as well as the redesigned state software system. And we're also going to reference at this point, I'm going to start referencing those matrix documents that we sent to you yesterday. So first thing I'm going to do is I have a demo account for the classic system that I'm going to go into. So I'm going to click on my reflection session. I've already logged into this account. This is a training account. And I am going to go into the menu system. Okay, so this is one way you can access, oh, sorry, I forget I'm already in the menu here. So once I'm in here, I am going to navigate and show you where the data comes from in the classic system. And this is one of the places you can look at it. There's also another option that I'll show you in a little bit. But most of our fiscal users either use Reflection or they use the eTerm software, and that's how they access this information. So since I'm already at the menu prompt, I'm just going to navigate to where the employee information is located in USPS. So at the top of my screen are my different menu options, and what shows here just depends on the access level of who's logging in. I'm going to option 2, which is to the USPS system. And then I'm going to actually go to option 1, which is the maintenance programs. And then option 4 in this menu is the USPSCN, and you see the description on it is employee maintenance. And most of our users know that they can actually just type USPSCN right at the menu, and it'll go right into this area. So you don't have to navigate through the menu system. Okay, so I want to point out the two different areas where the EMIS staff information is located. So the first two areas is the option 2 and option 3, the bio screen and dem screen. So bio screen is the biographical data, dem screen is the demographical data. These two areas work together. They share some of the same fields. So if you update information in one of those fields that's shared with the other screen, it updates it in both places automatically. The demographic area is really more of what we call a personnel access area, and it contains mostly just EMIS reporting fields, and sometimes there's some additional fields in there. The bio screen area is really more of a payroll processing area because this is actually the first record that has to be established for a brand new employee to get them set up in the USPS system in order for them to be paid through the payroll system. And then the other two areas we'll be looking at is the job screen and position screen. Again, these two share some fields. So again, if you update it in one area, it'll automatically show up in the other screen if it's shared. And the position screen is what's considered the personnel access area, and the job screen record is really what's used for the payroll processing. So I'm going to start by going to option 2, the bio screen. Okay, and this is just what we call a dummy default record. So I'm going to do my next key to get to an actual sample employee. Okay, so what I want to point out on here, so this is part of the demographic information that gets reported to ODE. So anything that's EMIS reportable in here will be coded as a CI code over in the EMIS system. Okay, so I'm going to flip back over to my PDF documents over here. And we're going to look at the staff demographic matrix document here. I'm only going to point out a few specific fields in here because these are ones we're going to also reference later on in this presentation. So the first one I want to point out on here is the state staff ID element down here. Okay, this is either going to be an Ohio assigned number, so usually that's an OH number, or if it's an employee that doesn't have a specific license or certificate with the state, the system will automatically assign it as the ID number, and that's explained in this reporting instructions section of this document. But then you'll see that for the classic system, again, that's these two columns here. Hopefully you can see what I'm pointing to here. So in the demographic screen or bio screen, which is what I navigated to just now, in either screen, you will see it and it's listed as state assigned ID. So I'm going to flip back over to that bio screen record that I was on. And then on this record, you will see right here at the top, there's that state assigned ID. Okay, so this one is a UD number, but that would be a specific license or certificate that was assigned to them. Okay, so that's where that's located. Okay, the next thing I wanted to look at specifically for these elements is on the second page of this demographic element document, and that is the years of experience. Okay, so on this page we have total years experience and then principal years, and actually authorized was on the first page, so I'll go back to that. But you'll notice for this element that it only shows up in the demographic screen. So there's a length of experience area, and for total years, it will be listed under the word total. And then for principal years, under length of experience, it'll be under the PRINC label. But you'll notice on the biographic record, that does not have experience years on it. Okay, and if I go back up to the first page, at the very top, we have the authorized teaching years listed. And again, you'll see it's only on the demographic record, not in bio screen. But again, it's under length of experience, and this is the label on that screen. So let me navigate to that over in my reflection session. Okay, so remember, I'm in bio screen, but that record is only in the demographic screen. So I'm going to exit out of here and go into option 3, which is demographic. Okay, and you will see at the top, there's that state assigned ID again. So it shows up on this screen as well. And then over here, you'll see this is the length of experience section right over here. And then those elements that I just talked about, here's your total, here's your authorized years, and then over to the right is where you'll see the principal years. Now, all of these other length of experience areas, these are not used for EMIS reporting. These are used internally for the districts. So if your district has some kind of purpose for tracking any type of years of experience for these different elements, you can use that for your internal purposes. But total, authorized, and principal are the only ones that are actually submitted to ODE. Okay, and I haven't looked in chat. Do we have any questions so far? Nothing? Okay. All right, so let's move on to the job screen and position screen record. So again, I'm going to flip over to the PDF document for staff employment. And again, I'm only going to point out specific fields right now. that we're going to talk about a little bit more later. Okay, so the first one I want to look at is the local contract code. So on the first page of this employment elements document at the bottom is the local contract code. Okay, so that's a unique number that's assigned in the system to differentiate between different contracts that an employee may have. And in the USPS Classic columns, you'll notice that in both position screen and job screen, there's a label called job. So that is what relates to the local contract code that is reported through EMIS. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my reflection session. I'm going to exit out of this, whoops, not sure what I hit there. I'm going to exit out of this demographic screen, and let's take a look at it in the job screen record. Okay, so in job screen, it's right at the top. So this job number is what is going to be reported as the local contract code. And I do want to point out that each of these records I'm going to has a report to EMIS flag in it. So for the CK elements, this particular record is marked reportable to EMIS. So this is the job number that would be picked up to be reported. Okay. And I'll go back and show you where this flag is located in the bio record and demographic record. Let me do that right now so I don't forget. So I'm going to navigate back to the biographic record. In this screen, that report to EMIS element is located here in the lower right. And again, this is a shared element between the biographic screen and the demographic screen. So if you mark it yes here, it'll automatically be marked yes on the demographic screen. So if I navigate to that screen, demographic, here's that report to EMIS flag. Okay, so again, this would be for the CI record, and then the job screen report to EMIS would be for the CK element. Okay, if I go back to that PDF for the employment elements, I'm going to go to the third page, so I'm on page 1 right now. On page 3, you'll see where the position separation date element is listed here. Right below that is the position separation reason. And then a couple below that is the position status element. Okay, so we're going to take a look at these particular elements next in the classic system. So the position separation date, you'll notice that it's located on the position screen under the separation label and then date. And then you'll notice for the job screen record that the field is actually not labeled as date. It's actually next to the separation reason section, so I'll show you that. And then the separation reason is actually labeled like it shows here. And then position status is actually only on the position record, so we won't see that one on the job screen record. Okay, so let me show you those. So I'm still on the job screen record. So on here, the separation date and reason are actually located right here. So you'll see the separation reason label here. And then this would be the actual separation reason code right here. And to the right of that is the separation date. Okay. And again, the position status isn't on the job record. So now I'm going to go to the position record instead. So this is option 6 on my menu. Okay, so this is what the position record looks like. And on here, you do see the separation date and reason. They're over here on the right. Here's the separation label. And then you have the reason and then the date. The position status is located above that in this position information area. And then you'll see right here, this is where the status is located. For most of your employees, you're going to see that as position status C, which means active continuing. Okay, that's the most common status that you'll see. Okay, any questions on any of that? If not, I'm going to move on to where else you can see the information in Classic. Okay, so addition and actually logging in through Reflection or eTerm to see that information, you can also see it through the USPS web program. Not a lot of districts use USPS Web, especially for payroll processing. But if you don't use it for anything else, it really is a nice area to look at for EMIS reporting information. And I'll show you why. So I am going to go back to our fiscal services page, and I'm going to scroll on up to the top. Okay, and right here on the left is where we have our USPS Web area. I'm working on, or in that training account that is actually on our Columbus system. So I'm just going to click on one of our Columbus office districts. It really doesn't matter because the login page, because how you log in is where it will take you to specifically. Okay, this really isn't tied to any specific district. Okay, so I'm just going to log into my training account and see if I can get my password right. All right, I'm going to log in. So this is just a web-based interface to that same information that I just showed you through the reflection program I was in. The nice thing about coming out here is we have an EMIS entry area. You'll notice on the left I have a menu, and depending on your access level, that will determine what options you see over here. But you'll see there is an EMIS option, and right now if I click on it, all I see right now is a contracts area, which is for the CC record, which again, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Okay, so to actually see more information and to see what I want to see, I am going to select an employee. So I'm going to bring up that employee I looked at in reflection. Their last name was Atrix. So I'm just going to enter that and search. And then it'll give you a list of employees that match. I only have the one, so I'm going to click. And this just gives a summary of this employee's information in the USPS system. But now you'll notice over on the left, under that EMIS option, there's this EMIS entry screen area. And this is what I love about USPS Web when you need to check EMIS reporting information. It's all contained in this one screen. So all your CI and CK information is all right here. So this is the easiest place to check that information for your employees. So if you don't use USPS Web for anything else, I would at least use it for your EMIS reporting information. And what I usually do, well, first of all, let me just explain these little summary areas here. You'll see that this employee staff demographic information is right here, and I can actually click that to expand it. But you'll also notice they have two employment records. So they have a couple of different contracts. So they have a phys ed and then a sub teacher. One of the things that I often do, unless I'm looking at one specific area, sometimes I'll just come up here and do this expand all, and that will automatically expand everything for me so I can just go and scroll through. You'll also notice that up here I have a modify option. You can give read-only access to this area. That authorization would have to come to us through the treasurer. So you can give somebody read-only access if you have somebody that you want to review this information, but not necessarily modify it. Okay, and we can restrict users to just this area so they won't have these other options available. So keep that in mind if you think this would be really helpful for somebody to look at. Okay, so you can see in the staff demographics area, so some of those items I pointed out earlier from that demographic matrix document. The state staff ID, you can see on here, it's labeled state assigned ID, so that's where that's located. Here's your report to EMIS flag right below that. And then the years of experience is actually right in the same area here. So this will only show those years of experience that are reportable to EMIS. So unlike what we looked at in reflection where we saw all those other options for years of experience, you're only going to see the ones that are reportable to EMIS when you're in USPS Web. So we're only seeing total years, authorized years, and years as principal. Okay. And then if I scroll down, then we see the employment records. So you'll see for this first one, it's marked yes, report to EMIS. You'll see the bottom one, which is a sub-teacher, that one's marked no for EMIS. Okay, so only this one is actually going to be reported. The local contract job number is the first thing that's listed here. And then As far as the separation date and reason, that is located over here on the right side, so you can see separation date right here. Right below that is the separation reason. And then the position status that I pointed out earlier on this screen, it's up here at the top over on the right side. Okay, and if you're in modify mode, you can see some of these are drop-down options. So you can actually, let me just do that here. So you can actually click on the drop-down and see what your options are. Okay. When I was in the classic system, when you're in modify, you can actually just navigate to that specific field. And then you can press the F7 function key to get help on, what values are valid for that particular field that you're on. Okay. Okay. Now, if any of you have contracted staff that you need to report on a CJ or CC record, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. For the classic system, you will have to log into USPS Web in order to report those elements, unless you want to use the flat file editor, which I think Cheryl's going to mention later on. Okay, so on this EMIS entry screen where I see the employee staff demographic and then their employment records, if I scroll down further, well, and this is in my way, let me get rid of this. Okay, why am I not seeing it? Okay, let me collapse all here. There we go. I just had to refresh it. You'll see there's this contractor section right here. This employee does not have a contractor record being reported. If they did have that, I would see something similar to these with the contractor CJ reference on it. If I wanted to add a CJ record for this employee, so in this example school district I'm in, if they contracted this employee out to another school district, you could add a CJ record. And this is what the information looks like that you would have to fill in. If you have a CC contract record, that is located over on the left side here. So you would just click on that option and then just click on add. And then these are all of the elements that would need to be reported for that type of record. Okay, any questions on any of that? Anything in chat that I'm missing? I don't know where my chat box went, so let me know if there's anything I need to address. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at while we're still talking about the classic system is there's another program. This you can only get to through Reflection or eTerm. So I'm going to go back to my Reflection session and I'm going to exit out of here. Okay, there's a program called USP EMS, and this is on the checklist. When I go into that, you'll see there's two options. There's the per det option. So you can run this multiple ways. This helps you to verify the information that you're reporting to EMIS for your staff. And it also has an error report option so you can check for any errors. So this is a good way to catch errors before you actually start submitting data to ODE for your staff. But I want to point out specifically the USP EMX option. If you're reporting CJ or CC contract records, you have to run USP EMX. That will create a file that will then be uploaded into the data collector. Okay, so if you look on the resources document that we gave you, you'll notice that we have USP EMS listed there and USP EMX. Let me bring this up on my screen. If you don't have it handy, you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so right here, USP EMS, USP EMX option. If you have CJ and CC records that were added into USPS Web, then you will get this output file called USP-EMX_EMISR.SEQ. And depending on which meta system your data is located, either it'll automatically go out to the data collector for you, or you will have to run another program to submit it, or you may have to manually add it out there yourself to the data collector. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And if you're not sure if you have CC and CJ records, it doesn't hurt to go ahead and run this USP EMX program. If you see this output file created, then yes, that means you do have C and CJ records to report. Okay, any questions on that before we move on to redesign? Okay, let's keep moving on. Okay, so the redesign state software. The SSDT does have a demo site, so I'm going to show you how to get to that, just in case any of you want to play around with it a little bit. It's available to anybody that wants to use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that SSDT wiki page that I was on earlier. And in this case, I'm going to scroll down a little bit further down on the page. There is another state software redesign area further down, and I'm going to click on USPS redesign. Okay, and the first part of this, it shows a list of different releases for the USPS redesign system. You just have to keep scrolling down. I think eventually they'll clean this up so it's not quite so long. But below that, you'll see there's a demo version area. And again, anybody can navigate to this and use it. There's also one for the USAS area. But if you click on this link, it will take you to a demo account they have. It's just anonymized data, so some of the data might look a little weird. But the username and password are right here, okay? So I'm going to click on that and log in. Okay, so if your school district is on the redesign, this is how you find those data elements. Okay, so come into here, and we're going to look at the menu system in here is really up at the top here going across. So I'm going to click on the core option, and I'm going to go right to employee. Okay, so this is similar to the bio screen and demographic screen information that we looked at in the classic system. And in the redesign system, we have a lot of grids. So everything is set up in grids. So you can see I have a list of employees that are that have employee records on the system. And you can sort these however you want. It looks like it's automatically sorting by employee ID number. You can also click to sort by name if you prefer to sort by name. Or if you're looking for somebody in particular, you can just start typing their name and it will start doing a search on that name. So just typing SA, it found last names that start with SA. Okay, I'm just going to select the first one listed here. So Brianna Townsend. I'm actually going to click on, usually use the view option. I'm going to go into edit because view is really dim to see. So edit makes it easier to see the fields. Okay, so again, this is equivalent to the bioscreen demographic screen. So these would be your CI elements. So again, referencing back, so I'm going to flip around again a little bit. I'm going to go to that demographic chart that we have. And for the, oh, I lost it. Where did it go? Hang on a minute. The right element. Okay, yes, demographic. And then did I lose local contract code? Demographic. Oh, sorry. I'm on, okay, yeah, demographic element. Yeah, I'm looking at the wrong one here. It helps if I'm on the right one. Okay, so for the state staff ID, this is what we want to look at. Again, going to this element. So since I'm in redesign, I'm going to look at this last column here. So under core employee, I'm looking for the identification section, and then there's a credential ID label. Okay, so if I flip back over, you can see I'm in that employee area. So here's my identification section. So you can see these are broken down into different sections. And then here's my credential ID over here. Okay, so that's where that's located in here. Now for the experience years, so remember we looked at authorized years, total years, principal years. If I look back over here, okay, so for authorized years, there's an experience section and it's labeled authorized experience. And on the next page here, total and principal years. Again, in the experience area, there's going to be total experience and principal experience. So I'm going to have to scroll down to look for that section. So I'm just kind of looking over here on the left, and then you'll see that here's my experience area. So here's the authorized experience years. Down over here toward the bottom left is total experience. And then the principal is over here to the right a little bit. Okay. And again, since we're in the USPS system, because of the other options for different experience levels, those are all listed in here as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. Okay, and then now let's take a look at some of those CK elements we were looking at earlier. So to find those in here, we're going to go into core and then position. Okay, and again, it's in grid format. And that employee I looked at earlier, Brianna Townsend, you can see that she actually has two different positions. One's labeled driver, the other supervisor, and you can see the status, one's active, one's not. Okay, and you can actually add more fields to the grid, and you can customize the grid however you want. So our fiscal users that are on redesign are already familiar with this, and they may have already created a specific grid that they utilize. But you can definitely add some of the reporting elements into this grid if you want to look at it, you know, to maybe filter on specific things or double check specific things for EMIS reporting. Okay, so let's take a look at her first position record. So I'm just going to go into the edit option here to look at it. So hopefully it'll be a little easier to see. Okay, and then for the employment element, so let me flip back to our chart real quick. Okay, let me go back to the first page here. Okay, so local contract code. Now I do have a correction for this. So for local contract code for the redesigned system, so I have core position listed here at the top of the screen, and this references the position number. That is partially correct. I am going to fix this document, and I'll probably post this onto our webpage once that's done. But to be more accurate, we're actually going to want to look at the compensation record. So that's something different in redesign from the classic system. In the classic system, we would be looking at the position screen, the job screen and position screen record for the EMIS reporting data elements. But in redesign, it actually splits out the job screen information into two different areas. One area is the position area, which is where most of these elements are located. But then there's also a compensation area. And that's specifically for the contract, because you can have an employee in one position, but every year they have a new contract. So we actually create different compensation records for each different year instead of overwriting the same information every year. That's how it used to be done in Classic. Okay, so the correction on this will be you're actually going to look at the compensation record. Position record is good to look at that position number because that will be part of the local contract code. But through the compensation record is actually going to add a letter to it. So for redesign, you're going to see the local contract code being listed with a letter. So if position 1 is being reported for an employee, but they have multiple compensation records, you're going to start seeing letters included on that. So it could be a 1A or a 1B, but you'll see a lowercase letter added onto that. And that's actually coming from the compensation record. Okay, so let me show you that real quick. Okay, so remember, I'm on the position record on position 1. So the position number is located right here. So if this employee is reportable to EMIS, and by the way, here is the reportable to EMIS flag, it's under this EMIS related information area, that is what will be reported. But again, because of the compensation records and redesign, when you actually see it over on the EMIS side, is actually going to have a lowercase letter associated with it. So let me go to the compensation area. So again, under core, and then compensation, this is where each actual contract for every year is located. And you can see for Brianna Townsend, she is showing 2 driver records in compensation for position 1. One is labeled legacy. Legacy just means that this actually came over from the classic system. So when our districts migrate from classic to redesign, these records come over and the type is listed as legacy because that's what's called the legacy system. If it says contract, then this means an actual contract record was established in the redesigned system for this employee. Now, you're not going to see the actual label yet in here, but I'll show it to you anyway so you know where it's located. So the actual contract code that comes over, I'm in the legacy record right now. If I scroll down a little bit, there's a state reporting section, and you'll notice this has a reportable to EMIS flag in here as well. So that's another change with redesign. Instead of having 2 report to EMIS areas, which is your CI and CK record, there's a third now with the compensation record, okay? Because again, an employee can have multiple compensation records, but there may only be 1 or a couple of them that are reportable to EMIS, okay? But you can see right next to it, this is where the actual local contract code is listed. And you see on my record, there's nothing in there. Well, nothing will show up in there until an actual collection is done. So when you do a SIF collection, which Cheryl will talk about that when she gets into the data collector, when you do a SIF collection on your staff data, that's when this field will get updated. Okay, and then it starts looking at all the compensation records that the employee has, and then that's when it will throw in the position number along with a lowercase letter. Okay, and if there's more than 1 record, one will be 1A, 1B, etc. Okay, and depending on what's reported to EMIS, that's what will come into the data collector. Okay, clear as mud, right? Okay, hopefully that made some sense. Okay, and then a fun fact I found out about yesterday, for those of you that do mid-year contract changes in USPS, when you do that in redesign, when you do mid-year contract changes, it actually will automatically create 2 compensation records for you, because it will take what was paid prior to the contract change, and it will basically make it look like a payout for that portion. And then it will take the remaining amount for the rest of the year and create a new compensation record for it. And between those 2 compensation records, it will report the correct number of work days between those 2 records. So both of those records need to be reportable to EMIS, and you will not want to archive the old compensation record as long as it's EMIS reportable. And again, it's taking the work days from both of those screens because the mid-year contract change is going to split it out between those records. So you want to report both of them so it gets the full work days reported. However, the contract amount will only be reported from your newest compensation record, okay? So just so you're aware of that. I believe Heidi's going to send something out to everybody on the redesign list, so you know about that. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that since she told me about that just yesterday. Okay, let's see. So that's local contract code. So now let's look at the other elements we were specifically pointing out. So I have to go down to page 3 here of this document. So again, the separation date and separation reason. So we are going to go back to the position record because there's EMIS related information on there. That's where we'll find these elements along with the position status. Okay, so I'm going to flip back over. I'm going to go back to position. I'm just going to go ahead and select that one employee's record here. Okay, and then you'll see I have this section here, EMIS related information. Again, here's the reportable to EMIS flag. And I can actually expand this. There's a little plus sign in the upper right corner. If I hit that, that will expand it out more. So if everything's scrunched together, you might want to try that to expand it out a little bit better. So the elements separation reason is located right here. Separation date is right below it. And then the position status is up on this first row of that section, right over here. Okay, and again, this is a drop-down area, so you can just select the appropriate one from the drop-down. Okay, any questions on those areas? Okay, if not, I want to show you the equivalent of what we saw through USPS Web for Classic. So I'm going to close this. So under Core, there is also an EMIS entry area. So similar to USPS Web EMIS entry, Redesign has something similar. So if I click on that, you will see I have these different sections. So I have the EMIS employee entry, so that would be the CI information. EMIS position, that would be the CK information. And then you may or may not see these other two elements. So it's EMIS contractor CJ and EMIS contracted service CC. Okay, so if you need these elements and they're not showing, let us know and we can actually turn those on. Those are actually separate modules. If you're seeing those and you never use them and you want us to turn them off, again, let us know and we will turn those off for you. Okay, so again, similar to what we just looked at, or similar to USPS Web, I'm on this bold blue line here tells you which tab you're on. So I'm currently on the employee entry screen. I'm going to select that first employee. Again, I'm just going to edit just to show the information. So again, this is really nice because it's only going to show you the EMIS reportable elements. So it's a lot easier to look at than going into the other screens. Okay, so you can see on here, we have our credential ID right here. And then in the experience area is only going to show those experience areas that are reportable to EMIS. So here's your authorized principal and total experience years. Okay, here's my report to EMIS flag as well. Okay, if I click on the EMIS position entry, again, I'm going to look at that first employee. Okay, so for this area, okay, again, the local contract code, we do have the position number here, but again, remember, it's actually going to come from the compensation record. Now, I will tell you what's missing here is that compensation information. Because it's been split out in redesign, that information is not showing on this area yet. There is a request into the state software development team to have that added in. So there is an issue out there for that to be brought in eventually. But currently you will not see that. So you will not be able to find that local contract code that's actually coming from the compensation record in here yet. Okay, so just be aware of that. Okay. So on this area, so we do have the position number, but again, remember that's only a part of it because of the compensation record. Okay. And then the separation date and reason. Let's see if I can find these again. If I go down a little bit, I do see the separation date right over here. Separation reason is over here in the middle. And then the position status is up here more toward the upper right. Okay, so that's where these are located on this screen. Okay, and then I'm going to show you the CJ record. Okay, so if you're in here, I do have a couple of records in here, so I'm just going to look at one. So you can see what's been selected for reporting for that particular element. And then the CC record, again, we have one in here, so I'll just open it. So again, you can see the reporting elements listed in here for that type of record. Okay. Now, when we were looking at the classic system, I told you about the USP EMS program and that USP EMS option to extract your CJ and CC information to be reported. Well, in redesign, if you have any CJ or CC records to report, there's an actual extract option on each of these tabs. Okay, so you would just click to extract the data. It will download a file or it might open a dialog box on where you want to save it. So this is the file you want to upload into the data collector so you can report that information. So just the same thing for the CC record. You would just do an extract here. Okay, and now I want to go back to the compensation area because I did forget to mention something there. Okay, so for those of you that are on the redesign system, something to keep in mind for your compensation records. So for this example, for that Brianna Townsend, we have the legacy record that came in from the migration, and then we have the contract record. So when you create new contracts for the year, you want to keep in mind that the old contract, and in this case it would be a legacy record, you will want to make the legacy record no longer reportable because that was for the prior reporting year. So if I go into this legacy record, you can see this has a compensation start and stop date from the prior year. Okay, so we don't want to report this anymore to EMIS. So you would want to make sure the reportable to EMIS flag is turned off. And then optionally, you can also archive it so that it doesn't automatically show up in your grid any longer if you want to kind of get rid of that noise of having that show up. Okay, so keep that in mind. And there is a way to do that through a mass change as well. So if you need assistance with doing that, let us know. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on anything I covered as far as where the data is coming from the classic or redesigned system? Okay, if not, I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl, and she's going to talk about where the data ends up at. Are you ready, Cheryl?
Certainly.
Okay, so let me stop sharing. Something's in my way here. There we go. All right, and let me give you the access. Okay, there you go.
All right, hopefully you are seeing the data collector. While the fiscal staff is working very hard on all of those elements, your EMIS coordinators are working in student information software to enroll students, enroll them into courses, adding the teachers, doing all of that. So what's unique about the L collection is that it brings together both the student side data and the staff side data. And I'm not going to actually run a collection, but just to show you a little bit of navigation in the data collector. As Carol mentioned, specific to, say, CJ and CC records, if those need to be uploaded into the data collector, you can share that file or those files with your EMIS coordinator, and they would go to data sources, other data sources, and manage, and there is an upload file option. And then you would see that file listed. The other thing in data sources is when the LEA, the district, either transfers data from their SIS or manually exports and uploads, those files will display here as well. So this is kind of a running total of the files that are available to be collected. So the landing page actually would show all of the open collections, but I have filtered specifically to the initial staff and course L for FY21. And then the EMIS coordinator, when he or she is ready to start a collection, the EMIS formatted files are those that we saw in the data sources. They would come from the student information software or in a flat file format. The SIF zone information data is what comes from USPS and USPS redesign. So that's really nice. We don't actually see a file, but because it's interactive automatically, so to speak, for this collection, for USPS users, the EMIS coordinator would select both of these areas to pick up data from their SIS, their student information software, and also from USPS. I'm going to switch back to my other little trying to get to, and it skips on me, sorry. Once a collection is collected and what we say prepared, so again, it's taking all kinds of data that is applicable to the collection and putting it together. You might see some errors generated, warnings or errors, and these are part of level 1. So these are just within the data collector. Nothing has gone to ODE yet. I'm going to okay. Hopefully you are now seeing this validation report. This is a level 1. And you can see, as Carol has talked about, the CK would refer to an employment record. A CI, if you saw that, would be the demographic record for staff data. And these are error messages that the EMIS coordinator is going to see. And if they do relate to the fiscal side of things, they're going to come to your area and request assistance. In most cases, yes.
We're not able to see the report.
Thank you. I was trying to share the entire desktop. Can you see that one now?
Yes, now we see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Most often you will have a teacher that needs to have at least one course master. A teacher position code is 230, and so they would need to have a course. Here are some semester hours that are required for the appointment type and education level. Here's FTE must be greater than 0. These would be specific to the fiscal side of EMIS reporting. So that's when the EMIS coordinator might come to your department and simply ask for help, not to point out that anything is wrong, just that we want to help you verify the information so that the data does go to ODE and is accounted for. The next thing the EMIS coordinator will look at are prepared and preview files. These are files that generate before they are submitted to ODE. And what they are looking for in the middle column is that there are no invalid records. They're also looking for excluded records. We refer a lot to the triangle, which would be the staff side data, plus the teachers assigned to courses, plus the students enrolled in those courses. And sometimes part of that triangle is missing, and that could be because staff IDs don't match, or a teacher hasn't yet been assigned to a course, different things like that. So they're going to research the excluded records. They're also going to look for staff missing. And remember, we talked about that report explanation earlier. This particular district doesn't have any, but we're going to go through an example of what to do with staff missing. Once the data gets submitted to ODE, there's an overnight processing that occurs, and then they start to send back level 2. So we had our level 1 here in the data collector, things that come up that you can fix before even sending to ODE. Then after ODE gets it and processes it, you get the level 2s. And these aren't necessarily errors either. These are just reports that they generate for you to verify your data. In this LEA example, at the bottom we have the TLCS. Remember, we talked about the teacher licensure course status earlier. That's where they will verify every teacher every course that's reported and the teacher assigned. This particular district doesn't have any general issues that we touched on. And in fact, I did a search yesterday of all of the Columbus data collector districts, and there don't seem to be any gen issues being generated yet. ODE may be waiting for more staff and course data to be submitted before those coming out. The fatal and critical messages that come up in this TLCS, they provide result codes and descriptions for the EMIS coordinator to research and correct. And there may be situations that they will bring to HR or fiscal for your assistance or for clarification. One other note on this screen is this help. If you click on this link, it will take you to the ODE website to that report explanation. So this is a shortcut for your EMIS coordinator to go to ODE and actually get to the report explanation, which is very helpful. I'm going to refer back to the EMIS resources document we've been following, page 3, and we're going to talk through what do I do with staff missing. And when you get a staff missing file in the data collector, there are 2 status messages generated on that report. A fatal or dependency error, which you see for Diane Smith. This appears when the data is submitted by the district but is unable to come through because inaccurate or invalid data has been reported for the employee. That should correlate to a level 1 and should be fixable before sending it to ODE. You should be able to reconcile that. The missing data, this appears when a staff employment CK or staff demographic CI records have not been reported for the employee in the current reporting period. The employee was reported in a previous year, in a previous collection, with no separation data reason, and ODE or the data collector cannot find records for the employee in the current reporting year. So just think about FY20 having closed in August, and now we're in FY21. So a staff was reported last year, but now you're not reporting them for some reason. So what's going on? Did the employee state ID assigned changed? Was it a ZID and the staff went to get a certification and now they have a state ID or a license ID? If yes, if the ID changed, then you will send an email to either emishelp@metasolutions or fiscalhelp@metasolutions.net and provide the following information: your district IRN, the ZID number, and then the credential ID. Or just with a caveat, you want the old ID or the former ID and then the current or the new ID, the valid ID, so that ODE can reconcile that on their end. There is a staff missing override spreadsheet located at this link, and you'll fill that out and then send that in a ticket to either EMIS Help or Fiscal Help. And when we receive them on the EMIS side, we save them as reference. So we do ask that the spreadsheet is used, even if you just have one staff. I don't know what they do on ODE side. Maybe they keep a whole big spreadsheet. We don't know. but we keep track of those so that as those are reconciled and come off of the missing, we have that reference. And then we will submit the override request through an ODE ticket. And ODE is really good about reconciling those pretty quickly. And you can do more than one. We have districts over the course of the reporting period that submit multiple override requests for staff IDs. Oop. My. Did the employee separate from service? If yes, review the meta flowchart employee resigned last school year document for assistance. So you're going to have some if-then questions to answer, but we've laid out a couple of examples to maybe simplify that. If they worked this year and they are leaving at the end of the year, you will flag the report to EMIS yes. You'll enter the separation date and reason, and there will be no change to the position status. So if they have a C for a current employee, you will leave that status alone. That's work this year, leaving at the end of the year, within the same fiscal year. If they worked 0 days this year and left prior to the end of last school year, and no separation was reported in that final L collection, you will flag that staff report to EMIS no, and you'll create a staff missing override CP record. And you'll create this in the flat file editor. And this is the screen. I will blow it up. This is the record of the flat file editor for this staff missing override. And you will need the state staff ID, the separation date, separation reason, the district IRN, and once you click create, then the date created and last updated, these default. If the staff worked 0 days this year, but they left after the end of the school year, no separation was reported in that final L collection, you will flag report to EMIS no, and you'll create a summer employment separation CL record. You create this in the flat file editor as well, so a similar look, but the record is going to require the state staff ID, the position code, local contract code, or that job record, the related local contract code and job number, separation date, separation reason, your district IRN, and then again when you create it, it will default the date created. And if you have to make an edit, then the last updated date would change. For the summer separation, you also have the option to reflag, if you will, report to EMIS yes, enter the separation date after the last day of school of the prior year, and the reason, and the position status then becomes a U. So this U code has been sort of minimized as to how often it is used. So the key is did not work in this school year or in this fiscal year. And it's worth repeating that if they worked any days this year, their flagged report to EMIS yes. You would then enter a separation date and reason, and there would be no change to the position status. Would anyone like me to go into the flat file editor to show these records? The flat file editor is just a very basic database option. There are no bells or whistles, and you have to know the data values There are no hints given or defaults. It's not optimal, but it is still an option for our reporting. And I'm sorry, one more thing about flat files. These would need to be exported and saved as a file and then uploaded to the data collector, just like the CJ and CC, if you create those. Just an FYI, some people ask if they automatically go to the data collector, and the answer to that is no for flat file editor. This may be one of the least favorite topics to talk about, but it's one of those where you just have to stop and take a breath and think about who's doing what and who is employed where. So how do I report contracted staff? The term contract refers to an agreement with another entity, an agency, or an individual that's going to provide services to the students in the resident district. This includes but isn't limited to teachers, administrators, gifted services. The entities either report data to ODE via EMIS, or they are considered or called a non-EMIS reporting entity. And Carol showed this great table that is in section 3.2, reporting contracted staff, or it's in the Meta-EMIS staff reporting document. The position codes, which are listed here, and then it says all others, these are defined in the EMIS manual section 3.9, position codes. This top row of the codes in this table, and it's actually below, not above, if you want to make that note. These include the administrative positions, the 100s, educational, the 200s, professional, 300s, technical, 400s, and clerical, 500s. And most often we're dealing with the 200s, the teachers, mostly the teachers. Note the reporting responsibility based on the EMIS reporting entity designation or non-EMIS reporting entity and an individual. And this table, while it's a bit scrunched, and I always had to look through the scenarios, I was the one responsible when I was at the ESC to create the contract staff records. So I referred to this every year, even if it didn't change. And this is a bit busy, so I went to the situations and scenarios, the categories and situations, in order to verify what I was reporting. But this is pretty clear if you like reading things in this format. The contract staff record, the CJ record, allows ODE to link the contracted employee to the student from the resident educating district when necessary without requiring duplicate staff reporting by the district. And it allows the contractor to report an accurate FTE for the time spent serving the student from each district. I found information from 2005, and that was back when both the resident district and the ESC reported almost the same thing. So the CJ record was a way to eliminate the duplication. An example where a CJ record is needed is when a resident or educating district contracts with an ESC or other EMIS reporting entity, that can include another traditional district, to hire a staff member who will provide services in one or more districts. The contractor, the entity that hires and pays the staff, so an ESC or EMIS reporting entity, you will report all of the required elements for the CI, the demographic record, all of the required elements for the CK, employment or the job record, and a CJ record, bring this up, one for each district served. In other words, if you have a teacher teaching students from multiple districts, a CJ record for each of those associate districts is required. You'll enter the contracting district IRN, and this is the resident educating district that is contracting with the ESC or the EMIS reporting entity. You'll enter the employee ID, the Ohio credential, the local contract code. This is the contract or job number of the same position code, the position code itself, that's 230 for teachers, and the position FTE. And this is expressed as a percentage, and it would be divided between or among the number of contracting districts. So if you're contracting with one district, that's easy because my 1.0 FTE would be 1.0 FTE to Gahanna. But if I am teaching students from Gahanna and Groveport, I have to divide that between the number of students in the class. So you always hope for an equal division of the students in the course. A non-EMIS reporting entity can include an agency such as the ESC COG, which is Council of Governments. They hire substitute teachers, or they hire and distribute substitute teachers. An individual could be a non-pub teacher or a substitute who becomes a teacher of record, or a company such as Arlene's Cuisine. An example would be a district contracts with a non-EMIS reporting entity. Eagle Wings, for example, for a teacher at a non-public school. This also applies when a substitute teacher becomes the teacher of record on a course. The district of residence, the contracting entity, reports all required elements on the CI demographic. They report all required elements on the CK employment or job record. And the noted element here is the position status. Are you contracting with either A, an agency, or I, are you contracting with an individual? Hopefully that laid out a couple of good examples for you to think if then, and then what needs to be reported and by which entity. The contract-only CC record allows for the collective reporting of staff that's contracted from a non-EMIS reporting entity. Examples include a community school that contracts with transportation to transport all of the students to and from school, as well as an LEA that contracts with a caterer, such as Arlene's Cuisine, to provide school meals. And we have a community school that does have a contract with a caterer. So we talk about that contract only record every year. What questions do you have about contracted staff, separations, data collector information?
I have a question. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
yes.
Okay. Jason's trying to help me with this, but the more I listen, the more confused I get. I work for 12 charter schools. And this year we are doing both virtual learning and in-person learning. So each one of my schools is its own district. And I have teachers right now. I mean, I might have a teacher working at 6 different schools teaching virtually. How do I report them? Do they need a contract record? How do I do, I mean. I told you it was.
Well, this will be, my final answer will be to submit a help desk ticket. And who holds your data collector? Where would you typically open tickets? To Dayton?
Dayton, yeah. It would be, our ITC would be in Dayton.
Okay, I would open a ticket with that information, but I would send it to the EMIS side because we have gotten lots of questions about the online or the virtual learning scenarios. And they will be familiar with your schools, number one.
Okay.
And I believe we had a similar question about a teacher teaching at multiple districts in this type of situation. So I can't answer specifically. I would want to dive into your data a bit more. So that's why I recommend go ahead and open the ticket. Let us take a look at everything for you without me giving just such
I gotcha.
an,
It's
okay.
weird because they're not considered part-time. I mean, they teach full-time as a virtual teacher. It's like I'm not sure how to, so I'll put in a ticket.
Yeah, if does each charter school hire its staff?
They're all hired through performance academies, like,
Okay, then
and
are they contracted to the individual charter school? So we could have a combination of, is it a contract situation plus the course situation? And so that's why I recommend, because this is going to be very unique, and then we'll have it for reference also if other folks ask about it. But definitely get the details into a ticket and send that to us.
right,
We can take.
they're hired because we only use it for reporting. So, like, I do both sides. I do the USPS side and I do the EMIS side.
Okay.
Um, but I know when they're hired, they're assigned to a particular school.
Okay.
I'm just
Yeah,
not
I
sure
would want to,
how it's
I would
done.
want to look closer at first the hiring part and who's paying, and then how they get to the charter schools, and then start to look at the courses and the impact of that. So definitely, because of the uniqueness going into this year, we would
Right.
want to give you the right guidance on that.
It's different. And I'm like, I don't know how to put them in.
Yeah, we understand. We really do. We had a lot of questions as well. So yeah, please do that.
That are doing all 12 schools. So I'm like, I don't know how to put you in here. Okay, I will put in a ticket.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I saw a lot of activity in the chat area, and I just want to send a shout out to the Meta support team. I appreciate you answering those questions. If anybody asked a question in there and you did not get a response, or you still need more information, probably the easiest thing to do at this point is going to be to send a help desk ticket. So you can send, so if it's specifically about staff data in the USPS system, and you're on the classic system, please send an email to fiscalhelp@metasolutions.net. If you're on our redesign system, please send an email to redesignhelp@metasolutions.net. And then, of course, if you're more concerned about some of the reports or processing through the data collector or the flat file editor, either one, I would recommend you send a help desk ticket. So just send an email to emishelp@metasolutions.net.
And Carol, if I could add, what's great about Meta, what I just love is if you open a ticket to EMIS and I can't help because it's on the fiscal side, I will either pick up the phone or we will refer the tickets back and forth. So we will get you the help, even if, even when we're working together. So just send it in and it will get to the right spot. That's the key. Get it sent in so we can start to do the research for you.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, if there are no other questions that we might be able to answer right now, thank you all for attending. If any of you would like a certificate of attendance for today, please go ahead and email me directly. So just send it to cvansickel@metasolutions.net. There is a staff page on our website, so if you didn't quite catch that, you can go there and find my specific email address from there. You can always send in a help desk ticket as well, and that will eventually get to me that way too. So thank you all for attending, and I hope you have a good day and stay safe out there. And Thanksgiving is next week, so I hope you all enjoy the holiday. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.